Okay, today I've got a fun little pre-bonsai project. I've got one that's a pretty normal size to small bonsai, maybe show him close to that range at least. And then I also have another that's more of a mame. I did do this one just the other day, just so you get an idea of size. This is a Zelkova that I cut way back. A lot of the leaves that were there are starting to die back, but that's normal. I do have a lot of new buds right in there, so it's actually taking off pretty well. It looks like I've got 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 coming in. So 3 definite ones, and then 2 extra ones that are starting to show, and then actually another one right over here. So we've got buds along this tiny little tree, and that will be real fun. They're all happening on this branch right here, so this one will eventually get very carefully carved back, but it's in a big pot right now just to help it grow. It was a drastic cutback, and hopefully it keeps going. I have it in a humidity tray just so the roots always stay nice and damp. Now also today I have a little Euonymus plant that actually looks like a pretty good specimen already. It's got this nice triangular look to it, multiple trunks, but I think it looks really interesting. Like this, maybe have one of these branches wired down eventually, and then a nice small root base. Then we also have, it's actually just in this little pocket of soil, because I collected it and I wanted it to stay nice and moist, and since it's so small, it's important that it stays nice and moist. So I've got this tiny little trunk. It was a sprouting off of a 9-bark plant, and it does have a bud right there. I thought there was another bud around here somewhere, but it's got that one bud at least. Maybe another bud coming in right there. It's kind of hard to see with the soil, but then it's got a really tiny root base as well. So I'll go ahead and do this one first. It's extremely, extremely small, as you can see, but I think it would look really good if I could get this to maybe send off a lead with this bud right here. And it's best to do it when they just have little buds, not branches or leaves yet, because as you saw with the other Zelkova, that the ones you leave, the leaves you leave usually just die off anyways, and you're just wasting energy pretty much. So I'm going to put it in this nice big pot, especially compared to the size of this tree. I have just a sandy, regular potting mix, some sand in there, and some pea gravel. So all I'm going to do is dig a little hole. I put a piece of paper towel at the bottom just to hold the soil in, and plop this guy in nice and snug. I'm pretty much planting up right to that new bud. I'm burying some of the trunk that's going to show in the future, but when you're doing major cutbacks like this, or you take a tiny little piece off of a sprouting of a root of another plant, it's best to just really put it down a lot lower than you normally would, just so it gets a lot of humidity and doesn't dry out. Because if the roots are showing, or you're starting to show nabari, which is the showing of the roots, it just ends up drying out if it's not properly established. So I planted it right to the level of that new bud right there, and I think that'll be something kind of actually interesting. Next, the Euonymus is a little bit bigger, so I'm going to be putting it into this bonsai pot, like an actual sized bonsai pot, and just placing it right in there. I'm going to take a lot of the soil out and just put it onto a piece of paper for time being. It's just this is actually like a bonsai mix that you can get from the store. It's got some mica in there. It's got a bunch of small broken up rocks essentially, and a small amount of potting soil along with it. Keep on going down. Luckily, when I took this plant and cut it back, it was a pretty sizable plant, but luckily there was enough roots right around this plant